Now, before we dive too much into the video, I just want to state that as a Jets fan, I never liked Jacob Trouba. I know he was a good player, and I know what he brought to the ice every night, but there was just something about who he was as a person, how his attitude was towards the city and team and organization that I never liked him, and I was always content with the idea of trading him. So that being said, I want to get that fully disclosed that I was always pro trading Trouba. So I'm going to lean heavily favoring what this, Neal Pionk and what we've gotten so far. I just wanted to get that out of the way before, I get a bunch of Trouba defenders. I'm not shitting on the Rangers. I'm not shitting on both teams. I'm just comparing it. I just want to get that stated before we jump into it. Don't want to get the wrong idea for you guys. So without any further ado, I want to jump in and I want to discuss so far up to this point in the NHL season. Currently, the date is March 14th, and so the season's been suspended for I think 3 days now. And I wanted to go over and look at so far how Neal Pionk and Jake Trouba have produced up to this point in the season being suspended. And it's surprisingly, most people who follow hockey and who are Jets fans will obviously know that Jacob Trouba has not had the best year. And being all honesty, the Rangers haven't had as much of a good year as everyone thought they would be. Frankly, I even thought they would be better than what they are. So it's kind of, take that as you will, but I want to still go over the fact of player to player, not with the team situation, not with who's they're playing with. It's just the player themselves and how they're producing with their new teams, their new roles, and how they're growing into their new roles. And so I'm going to start with Jake Trouba, of course, because he was the longtime Jet. We did draft him, of course, and he played well for us. He had some really good years, as you can see. I put the stats up on the screen so you guys can follow along with me. Going through his first years in the U.S. Development League, he played solid games. He was a solid player, a solid prospect, and when he was taken out of the University of Michigan in the draft, there was a lot of promise about this guy. He was supposed to be the face of our defense, and in reality, he never kind of shaped up to be that guy that we thought he would be able to be. Now, he had solid seasons in Winnipeg's, putting up, respectively 29 points, 22 points, 21 points on his rookie contract. But then what really started to happen was that he never took that next step to being offensively gifted. Now, Trouba was not always the most offensive guy, but when you have a guy like that with the ability to have the offense there and not putting up big numbers, it was concerning for a lot of Jets fans, and we didn't like his attitude that came from that. He wanted to be paid from the start, and you're not going to pay the guy the money he wanted when you're putting up 21, 22 points, That's not going to how it works in the NHL. You don't get big boy bucks when you're putting up basically beer league points as a starting pair defenseman when you're supposed to be an offensive juggernaut. Now, the things where it gets interesting is that when the Jets started to pick up pace and their development really started to, catch stride, and they started to become the contending team that they have been the last few years, other than this year, of course, even though I still think they're contending, but I digress. Now, if you compare all of that to what he did coming into these seasons when the Jets really started to pick up their offense and almost everyone's point percentages went up, players that have been there in the past, and, it just showed in a lot of different areas. Tyler Myers had a great year that year as well. He's not putting up that type of numbers now, but just shows to go, in hockey how one player can have a great year. But his real breakout season is when he had 50 points in the 2018-2019 season. And really, he played well. That was a really good year for him. He played really, really well. And then we lost him. We let him go to the Rangers because he didn't want to be here anymore, and we traded him for Neal Pionk and a first-round pick, which turned out to be Ville Heinola. Now, at the time, I wasn't happy with the trade, not because I wasn't high on Neal Pionk, because I felt like we could have gotten more for Jacob Trouba. I looked at it as a fan, and I was grumpy like most people were, and I didn't see this kid, Neal Pionk, coming in and fixing our defensive issues after we lost so many. You can't just plug in a second-year player into a team where you lost basically your whole D-core and expect him to play good defense when he's known for being a power play specialist and putting up points. Now, coming to Neal Pionk, though, he's a different of a case because when I actually didn't know too much about Neal Pionk once he got traded to the Jets, and I was curious to follow up and read more about him. And what I found out was that he was a rookie, and I did not realize. That's why I hadn't heard of him. And I actually looked into his year with the Rangers in his rookie year, and it was pretty interesting to me. I felt like immediately after starting to read this guy's stats, I felt like he could be a really, really good player for us in our system. And it shows that I kind of was right. And a lot of Jets fans that kind of had faith in him kind of didn't. But from what I saw generally from the community, it wasn't a lot of faith. Now, that being said, he still had hype around him and a little bit of kind of worrisome as well, because a lot of people didn't expect him to come in and play meaningful defense, not like, overall defense, and, help fix our issues because we'd lost so many defensemen and didn't really replace anybody. And I kind of felt that he might be able to grow into something like a two-way kind of offensive dude. Kind of like a John Carlson, maybe, in a way. I kind of saw him that, and I was like, he could become that. And hopefully this season it's a good trend up for him, because so far he's got 45 points, 6 goals, and 39 assists in 71 games. He has been solid for us. He's been basically the only offensive option we've had on the blue line, because Morrissey, yes, having I think 33 points is efficient, but it's not where we would like Morrissey to be. But he's had to step into more of another defensive role that he was in his first 2 seasons. Now, the big issues with where to go and look forward with how we can look as Jets fans and think what Neal Pionk can offer, regardless of the fact that he's only on a bridge contract and we're going to probably have to pay him a lot more than $3 million he's making, when it comes down to the fact is that you have to look at it as, can he grow into a better two-way player? And I feel like this year he's shown exactly what we needed to see from him in the first year of the bridge, that it's worth keeping him around. Him and Josh Morrissey could be a legit nightmare on a blue line coming in the future, especially on helping our top 4 develop. And Ville Heinola in the coming back as well with our first-round pick, that is also going to be a very, very good development for our blue line, and it just shows how well Cheveldayoff actually looked at the overall situation. He was content with not having the best defense this year, but improving on the long run, which has always been his goal. He's always been a guy thinking forward. He's always 10 steps ahead of the league when it comes to planning, and he's always been that way since the moment he came in. He took Mark Scheifele in the draft because he saw a lot of potential in him. Mark Scheifele didn't shine in his first couple of years. In his rookie year, he barely played. And he grew and grew, and now he's probably one of the best two-way centers in the league. And it just shows that that's how Cheveldayoff plays, and it really shows in this trade as well. He took a chance on a guy who had just had a really good year on a really bad team, had a bad defensive stats, and wanted to improve him. And it's kind of shown. Plus minus is a broken stat. We all know this as hockey fans. But taking that into concept, think about this. A guy went from minus 16 on a very bad Rangers team, which I would argue still has a better blue line than what we have right now in the Jets, to a plus 10 with Winnipeg on the blue line. That's a huge difference, especially for a guy solely based on providing offense from the blue line. That is where that number is very, very, very interesting. Not only, you have to look at it as a way with as Jets fans, we have to look at it like this. Yes, Neal Pionk may not be the best, defenseman in the league, but when you have to look at his development and what the future might have, that is where it gets very, very exciting. Jacob Trouba is on a minus 12 this year. Now again, bad teams take that into concept with the broken stat of plus minus. But he has never been a minus ever in the stats, ever. He's always been plus in his whole career. You can see on the stats if you don't believe me. Take a look. This is his first year where he has a minus stats, other than the fact that he was a minus 2 in U.S. National Development, which that doesn't really count. It's basically like a practice league. It's playing scrimmage games, and it's a very good league. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying it's not like an actual, think about hockey-wise, like the level of the NHL or the AHL. It's not that level. Not even like the WHL, I would argue. So think of it like that. Now, his professional-wise, he played on good blue lines with good defensive partners, but he never had to carry a pairing. Never had to. He always had the same issues happening with Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson, when he played with Mark Mathot on Ottawa, was a lot better than what he was after, because he didn't have to worry as much about the defensive liabilities when he had a guy solely there for defense. A lot of people forget about this in the NHL. Offensive guys only really work if you have a defensive guy with him, and you have to have that. If you split that up, you're kind of screwed. And that's kind of where Jacob Trouba's falling into place. He's not a defensive guy. He is a defensive liability. If anything, he showed that in the playoffs last year, and he's not worth the money that the Rangers are paying him. Neal Pionk, on the other hand, is developing into exactly what I thought he could develop into, a very solid two-way player. And because of that, his contract being $3 million at 2 years, so it's a good bridge. We have the better contract, the better player, And we got a first rounder that's going to probably be better than, in my opinion, I think Ville Heinola could easily be as good or better than what Jacob Trouba has been in his career. That is huge. And that's all because Cheveldayoff didn't make a win-now trade to help the team this year, but he thought ahead. And I am much more happier that he did that. You can't fix a defense overnight. You can't. Defense really wins championships. It's this old saying, we all know it, and it's true. If you don't have a good defense, you barely can make it out of the first round. Toronto is an example of that. Amazing offense when they're clicking, but their defense is flawed. And because of that, you put too much pressure on goaltending, and it just creates this abusive cycle for your goaltenders and your whole team, really, when your morale is that you can't stop a puck and you can't keep guys out of your own end. Now, that is why it is what we have done, as you know, the Jets have done, is getting two guys who could potentially grow into amazing two-way pieces to fit into the blue line in the next, 3 years. It's huge. It is absolutely huge. I would much rather have Neal Pionk and Ville Heinola than paying Jacob Trouba $8 million until 2025-2026 season. Yeah, so no thank you. Absolutely not. What Cheveldayoff did is not only fleece a team without us even knowing it really in hindsight at the time, but he also set us up so well for our future that we really don't have to worry as much as we thought we would have to. Sami Niku is going to be developed into a good piece, I believe. I still have a lot of faith in that kid. Dylan Samberg, if he can sign, is another great defensive prospect that we have. Ville Heinola, who I've been talking about in this video, is a great piece. And Neal Pionk is insanely young. He is only 24 years old. And he's already developing like that, just coming into the league in his third year fully as the league. If you count his first time with the Rangers playing those bottom minutes, he wasn't as good. He still put up 14 points in that year, right? And then his next year, full time with the Rangers, great. It was great. But he still had bad plus-minus and wasn't good defensively. He comes into his third season, his offensive abilities improved, and his defense has improved immensely. And that is huge for the long-term plans of this team. It is great. And I can't praise Cheveldayoff enough for what he did with his trade. He addressed so many issues at once, and none of us even knew about it. Now, in fairness, Neal Pionk could have never developed, and we could have had a guy who puts up 40 points on the blue line, but is a minus 30 his whole career. And no, that is not a good defenseman. It's not what you want for a guy that when you're trading a solid two-way defenseman, you need to get someone back who can kind of gel into that role. And that's exactly what Pionk has done. Pionk gelling into that two-way role, Morrissey not focusing as much on offense and focusing more on helping and being a two-way guy that focuses primarily on defense when he has to, has been huge. And it's really working well for the team. Now, yes, the defense is still fucked. It's not a good defensive core. I'm not defending our defense. Yes, we have major flaws there. But the one good thing that we can say is that at least Neal Pionk and Ville Heinola are going to fix that issue because we've already seen what they can do when they are in the lineup and where they are now in their development and in their careers. Imagine what it'll be like next year when we actually have the time to fix our defense and plan properly with actual cap because we won't have the worrisome of Bufflin hanging over our head with that big contract and what we can do with our defense. So, on that note, I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is the first video on the channel. I'm just trying to make a nice place for Jets fans to come. It sucks with the suspension right now due to the coronavirus. So stay safe, everybody, and leave as many comments as you like. You can talk about anything. Just trying to create an open feed for Jets fans to communicate and just have fun during this dark time, if you will call it that. So, on that further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace out.